What is the one thing a friend has to do to get cut off by you? I'll go first. So it was one girl in college that I really hit it off with. We became really close really fast. We had the same friend group. We were around the same people all the time. Everyone got along just right. And in college, I was really involved. I was an ambassador. I was in AITP. I was in NAACP. I was in BSU. LSU, not this one. She was involved just like me, but she wasn't in the same involvement groups that I was in. So as I started getting involved in these groups, obviously the more events that happened on campus and the more involved that I was in, I didn't want her to feel abandonment, so I wanted to bring her with me as much as possible. So the event happened and I brought her over. I introduced her to everybody. So it was time to play card games. So we all sat at the table together and we were playing Uno. It was a cool little mixture of people, and of course there was boys at the table. But mind you, we have the same friend groups. We've been around the same guys before. I would never expect her to do what she's about to do. So this guy came and sat by me, and of course he was flirting. He was trying to holler or whatever. I wasn't paying any mind because I was already talking to someone at the time. So fast forward, the vibes was going, the cards were going, and so was this girl's mouth. She would not stop talking about my business and what I was doing at this table with like 15, 20 other people. And it started off subtle. It was like, oh, Jenna, are you still going over Jenna, how did it go with Professor da-da-da? I know you failed that test. I'm like, girl, like, what's your problem? She just would not stop, but I let it slide because maybe she's just excited. Maybe she's just, I don't know. But what crossed the line for me is when she was just getting aggressive. What do you mean by that, Jenna? Like, if I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe y'all picked four with me. Girl, shut the what are you talking about? And this girl doesn't even curse. I would make a joke and be like, aha, you forgot to say Uno out. And she'll be like, stop playing with me. I'm looking like, hold on. Things got extremely awkward because everybody's looking like, aren't y'all supposed to be friends? Like, or they didn't know whether to laugh or to be scared because she was really doing a lot. You would not think that we were friends when you walked in that room. To me, this was her showing off at this point because I'm like, girl, you don't even talk like this and you not like this. So why are you trying to act like this? Is there a guy you like in here? And lo and behold, it was. So then we move on to the cup game. You know, the head, shoulders, toes, and you grab the cup. That's what we did. So the game was going, and of course, her and I were partners and we teamed up against each other. So they started calling the calls: head, shoulders, elbows, cup. And I lost, she won because she grabbed the cup before me, obviously. And when I tell y'all, this girl got in my face, yeah, get it, yeah. But she was overdoing it. She was spitting in my face. Like, that's how bad it was. It was to a point where our homeboys was like, whoa, like, y'all good, like, what's up? It was so awkward. I was like, yeah, are you good? Like, what's up? Girl, I was just playing with you. What you mean? And I'm like, no. And at this point, I'm like, nah, you was playing. We were at Uno. You was telling my business. You was playing at Uno when you was embarrassing me in front of these guys. You were playing in my face when you got in my face. Like, it's all these I'm playing. When in reality, you've never played like this with the year and a half we've been friends. So what's really going on? Y'all, by the end of that night, everybody knew who I was talking to, what classes I was failing, where I lived, what I was crying about last week. Like, everybody knew my business because of this girl. And I was like, wow. Like, I was baffled, flabbergasted, discombobulated, and combusted. Mind you, there was no alcohol at this event. So she was not acting like this because she was tipsy. This was a school-funded organization event. There was no alcohol. So we get in the car and she tries to act normal. Like, this is the friend that I remember driving here with. Talking like she didn't just tell all of my business and embarrass me to the fullest at this event. At this point, I knew what she was doing. She liked a few guys in there. She was showing off. Like, I get it, but at the end of the day, that's not how you do that. Honestly, I wasn't even mad that she did all that. It was the fact that it came out in front of all these people and I felt like you did it on purpose. I was also shocked to know that this was a completely different side of you that I've never even met before. Even though we've been around guys together, we've been around the same friend group. I would never act like that around other people, and I would never act like that when you're introducing me to someone, especially at an event that you work at. I didn't completely cut her off. I definitely kept her at a distance, but I for sure would never and have never invited her to another event or brought her around anyone else because I just felt like that was too much. Because people, she didn't talk about my accomplishments or talk about anything else. She talked about everything that was happening bad in my life. And to me, you were waiting for the opportunity to say that.
How my little cousin became my little brother. So growing up, ever since I was literally born, I've always been very close with my aunt, which is my mom's sister. Well, my aunt had 2 kids. One of them is the one that is now my brother. So my aunt had 2 kids, and then my cousin's dad had passed away in his sleep. And right after that, my aunt got super sick with cancer. So my uncle passed away, and then my aunt was super sick, and she actually beat cancer the first time. But then, I don't really know the timeline, like a year or a couple years later, my aunt got cancer again. This time the cancer was a lot worse, and the doctors did tell us that it was terminal, but that she had a long time to live. Well, this time while my aunt had cancer, she was in a very abusive relationship and literally getting the crap beat out of her all the time. It was just a super toxic cycle that no one could really get her out of, and we had all tried. He had been to jail. She lived with us at one point. Every time, unfortunately, she just went back, and there was nothing we could do. Like, this guy that she was with was not good at all. Like, I vividly remember on my cousin's 16th birthday, him calling my sister a whore and throwing a chair at the back of her head and barely missing by an inch. So after that day, my mom made it a rule where if he was around, I was not allowed to see my aunt because my mom did not want us to get hurt or us to be around that, which was a very difficult time because, like I said, we had always been super close with my aunt, so it meant that if someone dangerous was around, we couldn't see her, which was understandable, but it still also sucked because then we couldn't see our aunt. I vividly remember there was one Christmas where my mom made an exception to this rule, and she actually let us go to our aunt's house, and she was like, this is the one time and we're just going to see how it goes. And I vividly remember getting screamed at by him telling me to move my legs because it was in front of the TV and he couldn't see it, and he screamed at me, so my sister screamed back and argued with him. My aunt then kicked him out of the house, and he kept trying to come back that night. So obviously then I was not allowed over there again because he was crazy. Like a year or 2 after that, my aunt unfortunately ended up passing away. But before my aunt passed away, she used to always tell my mom that if anything happened to her, that she wanted my mom to have custody of her son, which at the time, I think he was like 6 or 7 because he's now 9. Which this was not a shock to anyone because ever since my little cousin was born, he was always at our house. Like, my mom literally was the one who picked the name for him. Well, after my aunt passed away, the guy that would literally abuse my aunt all of a sudden wanted custody of my little cousin. He also used to tell my aunt all the time that those were her kids and they were not his kids, and he wanted nothing to do with them. Which was true. They are not his kids. But the fact him saying that he wanted nothing to do with them and then my aunt passes away and he all of a sudden wants custody of my little cousin made no sense. So my mom did exactly what she was meant to do, and she got lawyers and she fought him in court for, I think, a year, maybe over a year. Like, it was a long time. And honestly, the court battle was freaking crazy, and since my aunt was no longer here, any evidence we had from her was hearsay. I don't know. Which, after that, my mom did get majority custody, which still sucks that he has to go over there, but yeah, that is the story time on how my little cousin became my little brother, and it was one of the best things that has ever happened to me.
Story time on how I found out there was a hidden camera in my room. And include pictures and the videos that I took, and try and help y'all understand what was happening, like the context. Just bear with me. Okay, so I lived with my dad from 6th grade to the summer before senior year when I moved out. My mom, for context, lives in Washington State. That's a 36-hour drive from me, 6-hour flight. So, for some context as to why I didn't go live with my mom. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the night that the night that it was found, the night we found the camera. And I say we because it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I start hearing like banging on my door, and I'm like, okay. So I wake up, I open my door, and it's my stepmom, and she's like shaking, like whispering, but like not really giving me much. But then she's like, look at this, and my room is pitch black. Well, she's like, there's a camera in your room. And so I was like, what do you mean? So like, obviously we turned the lights on, and we're kind of searching because my room, so how she found it was she was going through his phone, and like she found a bunch of other stuff, like he was on OnlyFans and like doing all this other stuff, but she like tapped on a random app and it opened, and she was like she could tell it was a camera, but my room was pitch black, so she didn't know what it was. But I had like a little candle lamp thing. And she saw it, and she thought it might be my room, so she came and like woke me up, and it was, and we found it. And so like to get the camera out, we had to go, I had a wall. On the other side of the wall was my closet. So I went into my closet. We had to like take the insulation out of my wall, and the camera was like taped. Like not taped. It was like sticky foil. It was like sticky foiled onto the wall, so peeking through the slats, and soldered into my light switch. So like, of course we ripped it out. So I remember after that, like, it was like 4 a.m. at that point, and I didn't know what to do. Like, neither did she. Like, we didn't know, like, what do we do? Do we wake him up? Or, because, like, there was so much stuff. Like, there was problems with their marriage, and then he also, like, was, you know, recording me. And what even makes it worse is I had boyfriends at the time, and he knew I was sexually active. And so I was sneaking out, like, when I was, like, 14 with the same boyfriend that I had until I was 16. And, you know, he found that out, and he, like, told me it was a safe space to do in my room. Okay, just leave it at that. He bought me a lock, told me to lock the door, you know, made me feel safe about it. Come to find out, there was a camera in there the whole time that wasn't in there for parental control because my stepmom didn't know about it either. And, like, he hid it. Like, he didn't tell anybody. It was only faced at my bed. That, like, big windowsill that you saw in the picture, like, it's a glass, but it doesn't open. Like, it's locked. Does that make sense? I don't know how to explain it. So around like 4, 5-ish in the morning, he like walks out. We're in the living room, like talking, you know, whatever. And he's like, oh, like what's going on? And she went on her rant with him about what he did and like what she found. And then I brought up the camera, and, you know, he kind of like brushed it off. He didn't really say anything about it. He was trying to focus on his like marriage, and like kind of just brushed off everything that like I was saying, like, okay. And so at that point, it's kind of hard to remember, but like I think I went back to my room and I just went to sleep. And I remember in the morning he like walked into my room after like no apology was given the night before, like nothing, like he had no remorse, he didn't care. And I was like angry and like shaking, and I was like, why'd you do that? And he was like, if you think your dad's weird, and if you think I had this weird intent with it, then you might as well just call the cops now and just put me in jail. Because, you know, child pornography, filming with minor, no consent, like, there's so many things that, like, I was doing in my room that he had access to, that he could have seen, like, so, but he kind of was just, like, told me I had no other option. Either I deal with it, or I call the cops and he goes to jail. But then that leaves me with not knowing where to go, because my mom is a 6-hour flight from me. My school is down here. Like, the only family I had down here was my dad, so I really didn't have a choice. But this video is long, so let me film another part so I can talk more about, like, why he said he put it in there, like, more about details on, like, what happened after that, and, like, why it took so long for me to move out after.
I just canceled a date I was supposed to go on in 48 hours. Let me tell you why. Okay, so I always say on here that communication is key for me. Like, it's a pillar. I can't do anything without effective communication. So the moment someone shows me that they don't communicate in a way that I believe is effective, then I kind of just wrap it up there, because we can't do anything without it. I don't want anyone to change for me. I never expect anyone to change for me. Be who you are. I'm just not going to accept it. You're not for me. There was an individual I was talking to. They lived out of state, which I don't even usually do, but I was just open to trying something new. So they lived out of state, and our first conversation went well, and we were on the phone for like 4 hours, and we had another call, and I was like, dang, we have a lot in common. He's very driven, very smart, very attractive. This could be something. Who knows? He's also grown, so if he wanted to come see me, he can come out here, I can go out there. It's nothing crazy. The distance isn't even that insane. Out of nowhere, he stops talking to me. Radio silence. Nothing. Completely leaves me to be like, in my head, I'm like, dang, was the conversation not that good though? Like what was, because I was on the phone, and it was a 4-hour conversation. 4 hours. I learned a lot about him, and then we had another call. Then we were I'm like, what? It's like that. I'm not oblivious. If it wasn't a good call, I would wrap it up. I was the one who said phone call in the first place, because I don't text. Phone call allows me to see if there's even anything here that we should discuss further. But that was a good phone call. So I'm sitting here for the first, like, week or two, like, I wonder what exactly happened. So I'm just in nothing. Regular silence. Then some more months go by, and then he starts commenting regularly on my Instagram story. Now I'm even more confused. Because I'm like, okay. Well, you know what? Maybe he's more just attracted to me. He doesn't really like me. Maybe he just hates me as a person. Then he'd be kikiing with me in the DM again. Oh, you're like, okay. All right. I know I'm hilarious. That's the whole thing. My personality is I'm a fucking catch. You met me. And you start talking out of nowhere. Now it's really, but I'm assuming since we're back in the DMs, nothing. I don't ever take anything serious in the DM. Nobody. I don't care. I'm just gonna like the message. Thank yous. Whatever. Nothing serious is happening here. Then out of nowhere, then he returns back to the messages. I'm okay. Welcome back. Happy to have you. But before we move forward, let's piggyback on that situation. Because I'm not gonna act like nothing happened. Because what happened? I'm not mad. I'm not approaching it. I have no reason to be mad. I'm not your girlfriend. That was nothing. But you're back for a reason, clearly. So why? What exactly happened? Just curiosity. It's more of a if before we can move forward. Like since that seemed like a really ineffective communication, if there was something at the time that I didn't know about, that you're like, okay, this was what was going on. I was talking to somebody else. I was dealing with somebody else. Something. I don't give a damn. But you got to say something, you know? He says, "Oh, that was nothing." I'm gonna go, "That was nothing." Noted. And then I stopped talking. I said, "Well, that was like the second attempt." No, okay. Well, no. So I just didn't say anything, which he didn't think was curious at all. It's crazy because immediately, as soon as I asked the question addressing the elephant in the room, he had stopped replying. He didn't. It took him like now. Then it took him till the next morning to reply, which is like if every time, like, it just shows me that you are just, this is just not your thing. I see that you've read the message, then you wait till the next morning to reply. So he kind of knows, like, trust people to be exactly who they are and be aware of these things. I'm like, okay. Then he said, "Oh, that was nothing." I'm like, "Oh, well, it was something to me," so I stopped talking. Now leave it alone. I'm like, okay, that's dead and gone. And then he says, "Text me again the next day." I don't respond. There's really no reason to keep talking. Then he texts me and asks, "Oh, what are you doing this next weekend?" I said, "I take it you'll be in Houston," which is the only thing I can assume because you don't live in the city. So I guess that you're just saying this so because you'll be in the city. Like, "Oh yeah, you gonna go brunch or dinner?" I was like, "Oh, okay, got it. Okay, I guess we can go to brunch." So I was like, "Yeah, I could, on a Saturday, go get some food or something." But then I really thought about it. I said, honestly, I already know he's great in person. That's not we already talked on the phone. That's why I'm like, that's why I was confused in the first place. So it's not like meeting you, I'm gonna be like, "Oh wow, dang, he is super cool." I already know he's cool. I know what he looks like. But this is important. This is an important piece. This piece is so important, and the way he handled this, I felt was so poor, and I didn't like that at all. And I don't think I could do anything with that. Like, I can't build with that. I can't do nothing with that. So I was like, honestly, I should probably just save myself. Cause I know at first one I did like him. He was like really cool. So I thought I was like blown whenever like the first 2 weeks after. Then I got over it. And now I'm like, honestly, to save myself, you need further investment in this. Probably shouldn't even see him in person. Cause I already know I like the way he looks in person. I love the way he talks. I just don't like the way he communicates because it's ineffective. And that's how I saved myself 3 hours on a Saturday afternoon.
Story time of how I told my school I was pregnant in year 9 or year 10. Don't get me wrong, I can't really remember what year it was, but it was either year 9 or 10. To put it in context for you, I found out I was pregnant on my 15th birthday. I might have been in year 10 because I was in year 11 when I did my GCSEs and Ivy was 1. So year 10. So it all started, this was after I obviously found out I was pregnant. I hid it for a month and then told my mum and dad I was pregnant. And let's just say it didn't go down well with my mum. So on the Monday, so I had told, I think like on the Saturday, I think she found out, Sunday possibly. And on the Monday, she dropped me off at school and we had massive argument because she did not want me to keep the baby. Understandably, I have no hatred against my mum. I literally love my mum to pieces. She loves Ivy now. She could not imagine life without Ivy. I understand why she felt that way. And our school had like a massive driveway. It really was annoying, to be honest. We had to walk down it every morning. And I got out the car after arguing with my mum and I was in absolute tears. And there was this teacher, she was absolutely amazing. She was so understanding. She was just an amazing teacher. Let's call her
Miss Richard, right, that's what her name is. So I was walking down the drive and Miss Richard said, oh, like, what's wrong? And I just literally did not say a word and just walked past her. And she literally, this is what I mean, she was an amazing teacher. She ran after me. She literally ran after me. And I was in tears. She could tell. She was like, what's wrong? And she literally just wrapped her arms around me like a mother would. Like, she just gave me such a motherly hug. And I was crying in her arms. Bear in mind, there was people walking past me. And she was like, well, what's wrong? And I just looked up at her and I was like, I'm pregnant. Her jaw literally dropped. Like, I've never, ever in my life seen anyone's jaw drop. It was the first and last time I've ever seen someone's jaw physically drop. I looked up at her, told her I was pregnant. And she was like, the first question she asked me was, have you told your parents? And I was like, yeah, I've told my parents. And she was like, right, it's okay. She was like, you've told your parents, you go to form and a teacher will bring you out. And I was like, okay. She then went on and told another teacher. We had a conversation. She rang my mum to 100% make sure my mum knew. And yeah, then I didn't want anyone else knowing in the school, so I told the teachers, like, I don't want anyone to know, I just want to keep it to myself. One person already knew by this point, you know who you are. And she was like, okay, that's fine, but we are going to have to tell the teachers because it's a safeguarding reason, safeguarding concern, something like that. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I was terrified because I did not want to walk in the hall knowing the teachers knew. I think I was more scared of what the teachers thought than the students did, because students would be students. I mean, you know what they're all like. But one teacher come up to me. He was an amazing teacher. I don't know what to call him. Let's call him Mr. Z, right? Mr. Z. He was an amazing teacher, and he was also my form teacher. And we was walking back from the hall, like in the hallway. I was going to my lesson, and I can't remember fully what he said, but he said something along the lines of, I just want to let you know that you're doing amazing. Your parents must be really proud. I'm really proud of you, and you'll like smash it being a mum. I literally wanted to cry there and then. Like, coming from a man more than a woman means a lot more, because men can be very iffy. Like, I know there was one certain teacher that was horrible to me during my pregnancy, and I think it's because he was awkward around me, like I was pregnant. So that coming from a man meant a lot to me than a woman. But 90% of my school teachers were absolutely amazing during my pregnancy. There was one teacher, and we used to sit together every first period, and we used to have a little croissant together, and she'd take me to the canteen. She was amazing. And anytime there was anything wrong, she's like, just come to my room and we'll just sit down and chat. She bought me presents. I got so many presents from teachers when I was going on maternity leave. And so many teachers cared. Like, actually looking back on it, I hated school. Absolutely hated school, right? I hated it since the moment I started it. But there was a lot of supportive teachers on my side. Everyone wished me luck on maternity leave. There was one teacher that emailed me, and I emailed her like a day after I gave birth and was like, she's here. And I sent her some pictures, and they was all helping me pick names. Like, there was some absolutely amazing teachers, and I thank you for that. If any of you are watching, I doubt you are, but I thank you for that. However, the teachers that weren't, I have nothing to say about you.
Get ready with me while I tell you about the creep that was sitting in front of me on my plane to America. So I just recently went to America from Melbourne. Like, I went straight to LA. We didn't have a stopover. And the flight is 14 and a half hours. So you kind of like get to know the people sitting like around you. So we made friends with the lady sitting next to us. She was really nice. But it was about halfway through the flight that I started to notice the man sitting diagonally across from me. So he was in front of my mum, but I could like see him there. So it was about halfway through the flight when I started to notice this man, because I think I had already watched the entire first season of Sex and the City, and that's all they had on my flight, only the first season. So I was getting bored and I was just like looking around for something else to do. And this man had obviously bought the Wi-Fi on the plane because he was scrolling through Twitter. So me being the kind of like snoopy person I am, I was looking at his screen just because I wanted something else to look at. So at first he was just scrolling through Twitter, just looking at like Trump updates and like Elon Musk, because this was the day that Trump had just gone into office, so he was obviously looking at all what was happening with everything going on. And then he scrolled on to this post that said, do women really love getting as much as guys love getting pussy? And he scrolled onto the comments and reposts. And he was like reading through all of the women's answers and stuff. And you know what? I understand being sometimes curious about like how the other gender thinks and stuff. So I didn't really think much of it. I was like, okay, maybe he's just curious about this certain topic. And then he went back to like the main Twitter feed and he scrolled on to the next post. And the next post was 9 things you should never do to your dick. And he went into the comments and he started reading about that. And at this point, I'm getting a little bit like icked out. I'm like, what's wrong with this guy? Why is he reading so much about dick and pussies? And then it gets worse. And he looks up this account, which seemingly at first just looks like a normal photography account. Like, it's just some guy's photography page. I was very wrong though. The photography page was actually, it was this one artist and he photographed women naked. Okay, you know what? That's a form of art, like, whatever. Not a big issue to me. But this guy was obviously using these photos in a way they were not intended, because he was scrolling onto each individual photo, clicking on it and zooming in on these women. Like, it might be a woman in a field and she's like a centimeter big in the picture. He was zooming in and looking at her. And I literally clocked straight away. I was like, oh, okay, this is really weird. And he was probably doing this for a good, like, maybe 10 minutes. And my mum had just woken up from a nap. And I said to mum, like, okay, like, try and have a look at what he's doing. Like, I was whispering it. I wasn't fucking being loud. And mum looks over and she's like, what the fuck? Because he's literally zooming in on every single photo of these women, analysing it, looking at, like, certain parts of her. And I'm like, what's happening? And so mum says, like, quite loudly, like, what the fuck, that's weird. And he starts going like this. And he's looking at my reflection, looking at his phone, like, through his phone. And he starts, like, going like that. And I, like, look away. I'm like, oh, I'm not looking. And he immediately shuts down his phone. And, like, I think he started going on the movies thing. And from that moment forward, anytime this man would open his phone, me and him would make intense eye contact through the reflection. And look, I might be extremely wrong about what his intentions were. It's just, sue me, it's what it looked like.
Am I wrong for refusing to pay my mother-in-law just to babysit our toddler while we go away on a 5-day vacation? My wife, 39 female, is turning 40 in 10 days. To celebrate, we are taking a 5-day vacation, just the two of us. It's the first time that she and I, 39 male, have been away like this as a couple since the birth of our son almost 4 years ago. We planned this trip months ago, and my wife asked her mom if she would be willing to come to our house and watch our son while we are away. Mother-in-law agreed. My mother-in-law is in her early 60s but doesn't have a real job. She will do cleaning for her brother who owns a bunch of rental properties, and he pays her in cash. So it's not like she has a schedule she has to clear to stay with our son for a few days. Last weekend, my wife called mother-in-law to talk to her about our trip and to ask if there's anything mother-in-law will need or want us to stock in the house as far as food or necessities. During the conversation, mother-in-law said that she will need $100 per day from us. This is the first time she ever brought up wanting to get paid to watch her son. My wife was caught off guard and just kind of agreed to it. But when she got off the phone and told me about it, I got upset. I told her that mother-in-law is taking advantage of our situation because she thinks we have no other options. I told her that is BS, that she sprung this upon us so close to our trip, and I don't think we should pay her anything. I said that I would call my parents to see if they can watch our son instead. My wife told me that mother-in-law wouldn't ask that sort of thing unless she needs the money, and that adding $500 to our vacation trip isn't that much of a big deal. I told her it's not about the money to me, it's about mother-in-law being sneaky and manipulative. I called my mom and asked her if they would be able to watch our son instead, and she jumped at the idea. Both my parents are recently retired, so they have plenty of free time and would love an extended grandson visit. I didn't explain the reason for the change, I just told them that things didn't work out with mother-in-law. I told my wife that my parents can watch our son instead and that she should call her mom and tell her that we no longer need her to babysit. She said that she didn't want to do that because her mom was really looking forward to seeing our son. It has been over 6 months. I told her if she was looking forward to it that much, she wouldn't be trying to swindle us out of $500. I told her if she didn't want to make the call, I would gladly do it. She reluctantly made the call herself, but it didn't go well. Mother-in-law got upset because we are now depriving her of seeing her grandson. My wife got emotional and ended up backtracking and said she would talk to me to see if we could work something out. After the call, she asked me if there was some way we could figure this out, and I told her we aren't changing anything again this close to our trip. She said maybe we could offer mother-in-law a lesser amount, but I reiterated that it isn't about the money, it's about mother-in-law being sneaky and trying to take advantage of us.